It is good to see you after such a long time, है?
थैंक
2008 से
यू।
2012 12 में आपने पास आउट किया और उसके बाद अब हो गया 21, तो इट इज
जी
ऑलमोस्ट
सर।
9 लॉन्ग years. Huh?
यस सर।
So how did
फॉर
it
मी
feel
आल्सो
like
इट्स
being on campus for all these while? मतलब 10 साल 11 साल आप कैंपस से बाहर रहे and then suddenly coming back to the academia and joining with the youngsters. How does it feel like?
सर एकेडेमिया तो कभी छोड़ा नहीं था, हमेशा बनना था। एट द एंड ऑफ द डे स्टार्टिंग से था प्रोफेसर ही बनना था, लाइक बनना तो प्रोफेसर ही है, लेकिन कहते ना सीधा
Yeah.
रास्ता कभी सीधा रास्ता जल्दी से मिलता नहीं है। यू हैव टू समटाइम्स यू हैव टू वेट फॉर योर ड्रीम्स टू कम थ्रू।
Okay.
सो वही अभी
And
इसलिए अब यहाँ पे पीएचडी करने के लिए अब यहाँ पे आए, उसके बाद वापस से ज्वाइन तो एकेडेमिया करना ही है एक तरीके से अभी भी।
right. So I think you are now pursuing a PhD in the domain of IoT and security. Am I correct?
यस सर। यस सर।
Right. So can you please tell us something about your place of work?
मैं वर्क 5 साल मैंने जब सीएनएन में काम किया था रिसेंट में, यानी सिस्को के लिए, तो आई यूजुअली वर्क फॉर एज अ नेटवर्क डेवलपर, डिवाइस ड्राइवर डेवलपर। So I
Mm-hmm.
want to become a come into network security. But when I joined
Mm-hmm.
Carlton, I found that network security with the network security, there is not that much, there's a growth, but up to a certain, you cannot do programming. You have to stay at one point. You will be stuck in one point kind of thing. And for
Mm-hmm.
me, I love the programming more than anything. So फिर मेरे प्रोफेसर ने मुझे सजेस्ट किया, you want to do in security, so choose a field where it covers everything. So I
Mm-hmm.
suggested him with IoT, Internet of Things, because it covers like hardware, software, even the networking part of it, communication protocol and everything. So
Right.
the problem with the IoT I found is like there are so many companies in the market. We can,
Mm-hmm.
हम लोग product, we can find a product in like from 100 rupees to 1,000, 20,000. But it
Right.
depends, and the people gonna buy the $1,000 rupees product because वो cheap पड़ता है। हम लोग हमेशा सस्ती चीज पे आते हैं। प्रोडक्ट की क्वालिटी क्या है, सिक्योरिटी क्या है, वो तो
Correct.
सेकंड फेज, वो तो कभी सोचते भी नहीं हम लोग। तो जब वो चीज मैं देख रहा था
Right.
तो उसमें समझ आया कि सिक्योरिटी तो कंसेप्ट कभी है ही नहीं। हम लोग यानी
Mm-hmm.
क्वालिटी तो मेरा मोस्टली डिजाइन में जो करता हूँ अभी, मेरा जो काम होता है यानी जो लो
Mm-hmm.
एंड प्रोडक्ट्स होते हैं, जो यानी सस्ते प्रोडक्ट्स होते हैं, उनको मैं कैसे सिक्योरिटी प्रोवाइड करा सकता हूँ, ताकि अगर क्योंकि
Mm-hmm.
कंपनीज भी क्या होता है, आईओटी की इतनी कंपनीज है मार्केट में कि प्रोडक्ट की जैसे बैटरी वाले प्रोडक्ट्स की कॉस्ट यानी चलते 3-4 साल आराम से चलते हैं। कंपनी आती है और
Mm-hmm.
1-2 साल में चली जाती है, प्रोडक्ट मार्केट में रह ही
Right.
जाते हैं। तो उनके लिए
Mm-hmm.
सिक्योरिटी प्रोवाइड कराना थोड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट केस हो जाता है। तो इसलिए मेरा अभी तो फर्स्ट ईयर मास्टर्स में तो मेरा प्रोजेक्ट था, हाउ आई कैन प्रोवाइड द
Mm-hmm.
सिक्योरिटी टू देम, सॉफ्टवेयर अपडेट्स टू देम थ्रू थर्ड पार्टी और समथिंग। So I develop a
Mm-hmm.
whole system for them. And
Right.
now I'm working on operating systems for IoT devices. So I'm currently working on low end protocols to support those security.
हेमंत, आप जब यहाँ कैंपस में थे तब शायद प्रोबेबली हम लोग कंप्यूटर नेटवर्किंग या इससे रिलेटेड कुछ पेपर्स वगैरह देखते थे, तो उस टाइम में आपको हल्का फुल्का सा एक जो ब्रीफ आइडिया इन टर्म्स ऑफ सिक्योरिटी एज पर द सिलेबस दिया गया था, सो डिड इट फॉर्म एनी बेस या ग्राउंड फॉर you to be motivated towards the segment called IoT and security, because these two are very different segments. IoT is something different and security is something different. How did you actually connect these two? इन दोनों को
So
एक साथ मिला करके कैसे घुस गए आप इसमें?
सर मोस्टली एक साथ मैं इसलिए मिला सकता हूँ, जैसे हम लोग नॉर्मली सोचते हैं सिक्योरिटी आज की डेट में सर हर डोमेन में फेस करती है। चाहे आप डिजिटल प्रोसेस, आप कोई भी
राइट
प्रोडक्ट डिजाइन कर रहे हो या फिर एक सॉफ्टवेयर
राइट
एप्लीकेशन भी डिजाइन कर रहे हो, आप सिक्योरिटी लेते ही लेते हो। क्योंकि हम लोग सिंपली कहते हैं कि विदाउट सिक्योरिटी हैकिंग ही इतनी हो जाती है आजकल। हैकिंग तो
करेक्ट।
सर कहते हैं ना, हम लोगों से ज्यादा तेज हैकर्स होते हैं। हम लोग कोई प्रोडक्ट डेवलप करते हैं, अगले दिन उसका कितने क्रैक एक मार्केट में प्रेजेंट होता है कि आप उसको कैसे हैक करके अपने सिस्टम में डाल सकते हो।
राइट।
सो सिक्योर, तो मेरा पॉइंट यही था कि आईओटी में मैं इसलिए गया कि आईओटी में प्रोटोकॉल्स ये सब होते हैं और नेटवर्किंग सर। अब इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स इंजीनियर को मैं सिंपली सीरियसली प्रैक्टिकल नोटिस, इट्स क्वाइट हार्ड टू गेट इन अ जॉब इन देयर फील्ड, बिकॉज हमारे अपने यहाँ पे जितनी इलेक्ट्रिकल की जॉब है सब गवर्नमेंट सेक्टर में आती है और दैट्स वेरी लेस नंबर ऑफ स्टूडेंट दैट गेट
राइट।
जॉब। सो यू एंड अप बीइंग इन आईटी सेक्टर। मेरे लिए किस्मत मेरी अच्छी थी, मैं आईटी सेक्टर में गया, लेकिन मैं नेटवर्किंग फील्ड में गया था कि मैं नेटवर्क प्रोटोकॉल डेवलपमेंट कर रहा था आईटी सेक्टर में भी। तो मेरे लिए नेटवर्किंग स्टार्टिंग से एंड तक, जब थर्ड ईयर में
ओके
से जब फोर्थ ईयर में हम लोगों ने कोर्स लिया था, आई थिंक कंप्यूटर नेटवर्किंग का कोर्स था, जिसमें हम लोगों ने प्रोटोकॉल पढ़े थे, ये सब चीजें पढ़ा था।
राइट।
तो दैट कोर्स स्टिक विद मी till this point also. I'm currently working on the networking protocols also, like low end networking protocol, like for IoT devices like MQTT and like what you call it, CoAP, these low level protocols. I'm currently working on those, but it stuck with
राइट
me from fourth year.
राइट
Like I'm
राइट।
currently from like 5 year even in the job I working as a like a protocol development protocol developer. currently also I'm working as a protocol developer, or like, but it contains in IoT. So protocol और networking कभी खत्म ही नहीं होती सर, और security तो कहते हैं ना, you have to include in every point. Otherwise, if you forget security, it's gonna come and eat you. Sometimes it's gonna be a bigger problem in the future.
Great. So it was nice interacting with you so far. With the permission of the available authorities on board and the learned faculty members who are available here on this panel, I would now request the event to be started. And in such a scenario, I would welcome all the learned faculty members, the students, and the alumnus of the campus who have actually joined in this webinar on IoT and security, right? So it gives me a great pleasure to welcome everybody here for this interactive webinar session on IoT and security. And the guest or the speaker for the day, as we all know, is Mr. Hemant Gupta. Hemant had been a student of this campus for 2008 to 2012 batch, मतलब 2008 से 12 के बीच में he was here in Jaipur, और जयपुर से इन्होंने BE इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स में किया है, and currently he is pursuing his PhD in the area of IoT and security from Carleton University, Canada. Right, and with the permission of all the faculty members and the senior in charges and the other faculty members who are here at this point in time, may I request the coordinators of the event, rather the student coordinators of the event, to take over and run this show further for us.
Good evening to everyone present over here, and welcome to today's session with Mr. Hemant Gupta, an exceptionally talented alumnus of VIT Jaipur, batch 2008 to 2012. As he is a member of GSA Carleton, he would be giving us some wonderful insights so that we could also imbibe them, and it would help us in our future perspectives. Sir, we welcome you we extend you a hearty welcome on this platform. So how has been your journey from VIT Jaipur to abroad? I mean, how was the experience in totality?
Thank you, Rima, and thank you all the faculty, and thank you, sir, ma'am, sir, and thank you all the friends that come here to join this session. So my journey, to be honest, I'm not that much talented. I'm an average student. Let's put it this way. I'm an average student. So the point is, when I finished my BIT in 2012, I'm an electronics student. So the point is, getting a job getting a job for the electronics student is pretty much hard in his domain, because when I was looking into the job, like in IT job into my domain, like embedded system and these, India don't have that much of big companies, and there are many good startup at this point. But at that time, near the house, like near in Gurgaon and that area, there is not that much. So I tried for IT sector. So in IT sector, I got lucky. To be honest, I can say I got lucky. I joined the Edison, and I worked in a Cisco project for 4 years. So that was one of the good things that I got into, because I work in embedded system and networking, using networking domain, and develop embedded system, device driver development and everything. To be honest, I can tell you honestly, when I finished my college, because as an electronics engineer at that point, I'm not good with programming. In a C, I only know how to open a file and close a file till this point. But with the job and everything, you learn a lot in your first 4 years of career. The training of Edison was quite good. And after 5 years, during the 5 years, I got an opportunity to do a master's with BITS Pilani as a work integrated learning program. So I learned more about software management, IT sector, because I was never quite sure I'm going to come abroad to pursue my study. I want to do it, but as a student, you're not quite sure. So you always have to be prepared. Whatever the opportunity is coming in front of you, you have to take it and go with it. So when I get a chance to come here, I studied, I joined the master's. The bigger challenge for me coming here was, when you have a good stable job and good earning, and you tell your parents you don't want that job, you want to go abroad and wash the dishes, do part-time job, because every international student has to do part-time job, work in some restaurant or work in some kind of a grocery stores or somewhere to survive at this point. So when you tell this, sometimes friends, when you tell it in the first time, they're gonna react like, are you kidding me? Or are you nuts? First thing, that's their first expression. Literally, that's their first expression. But when you tell them that that's your dream, and they will understand and they will support you to the point. So I came here, I finished my master's, within 2 years. I published only one paper. One paper was approximately, 2 papers. So published 2 papers. When I was about to go for a job, then my professors offered me scholarship for doing a PhD, and I got into domestic fees. Because when you go abroad, the bigger challenge is finance. So when you pay, because the difference between an international student fees and domestic student fees is quite huge. Like it's a kind of a, how can I say, it's a huge amount of difference. So when you pay a domestic student, when they offer you domestic student fees, and for me, I was going for a PR job or a PR, like permanent residency, so that I can pay the domestic student fees in the future when I start my PhD. So when they offer me this thing, I was like, yes, I was only going for this one, and I can save time also. So I joined the PhD. The topic for my PhD is IoT, because the point is you learn. I was quite into robotics and hardware because I want to control both hardware and software. I was feel something when it's running. I feel like I did something. So the point is that's why I joined into IoT, because IoT contains both software and hardware embedded system complete. So that's why particularly. And the part of security is, that's a huge way to go, because when I saw when I was reading many articles in IEEE magazines and everything, at this point, every secure magazine contains an article about security of each and every stuff. Because the point is, when we design anything, even as a project also, you as a computer science engineer or electronics engineer in your fourth year, you design a project. So whenever you design a project, you never thought of security. Your first aim is to make this project working and running so that you get the marks. But the point is, even in the academia also, even here also, when I was talking to my people, like I have friends in undergrad, then I'd ask them, did you consider when you develop a web development app or Android app, security about anything? They was like, we are not getting marks about it. Like we are not getting judged on this part. If an application is working, we're getting marks out of 100 out of 100 on that part. So why we need the security? And with this behavior, they enter into the industry or everything. So that was that stuck me. Like security was not everyone do not think security is a kind of a, it's a privilege, but it's a mandatory thing. Everyone has to think about security, because at this point, your data security is not about your money and everything. Your data is more precious thing than anything. And if you cannot protect it, it will be a bigger problem.
Right, right, sir. So I want to ask you a very basic question that when we enter the college and when we leave it, we have two very different perceptions about college. So what was it?
So when I joined the college, in 2008, the ragging was still there. Little bit of ragging was still there. So my point was, I was little bit scared of, like heavily scared of ragging, because the point is, second thing, you leave your house for the first time and you came, like my hometown is Alwar, even though it's 120 kilometers far only, but when you leave your hometown, like you get your food cooked, everything is done for you.
Yes,
and the point is, when you leave you have to live by your own in the hostel and everything. So those are the two scary things that happen. But after 4 years, that's the part, it becomes the life, because then your friends become your family, because in the starting 6 months or 4 months, you realize you have another family with your friends, the batchmates, everything. So when you make that family when you live with that family, then you realize, okay, you don't need to go every time. You need to talk with your family every day, or like once in 2 days kind of thing, so that you're good and okay. But you don't. But you need to find a family within your friends and everything. You need to make good decision here, because you cannot go every time like you feel everything. You cannot go home. I live nearby, but many of my friends, like I have good friends, they live in Hyderabad and south, in the way end of south. But the point is, it's quite hard for them to go every time. So we only have summer. So we live like, that's the point. When I leave Carlton, the point is only regret. Like when I leave the BIT, the only regret is like many of my friends are placed in different locations. Few Bangalore, few quite in south, few in Noida. I was in Gurgaon. The point is, that's the point. Like you have to keep in touch. Then Facebook is the only medium to keep in touch, or the phone call. But yeah, the only regretting was like to leaving the friends behind, to be honest, like leaving, separating with them.
Right. And what was the biggest transitional issue that you faced when you went from India to abroad, be it a cultural shock or something like that?
So cultural shock was always there, because the point is, like many people say, like to be honest, many people say there was when you go in these countries like Australia, Canada, there will be discrimination. People gonna say, many people say that, but the point is, there will be other people, there will be friends. And to be honest, I haven't seen that kind of thing. People are good here. The point is, it's like a mirror operation. Sometimes it's a mirror operation. How you're gonna behave, opposite person is gonna react to the same thing. But for me, the biggest transition was to survival, because you are a steady paycheck. When you do in an IT industry, when you work, you have a steady paycheck. You come, you do your job, you get a paycheck. But when you come here, you have to, after 5 years, for me, bigger transition was getting into the studies again. Like it's a bigger and master's program, and you're paying too much fee, everything. You're paying fees. The point is, starting studies again is a bigger shock for me. The cultural shock is in Canada, you can find as many Indians as you can find in India. I can say that. In Canada, there are many Indians. You can find Indians in
Mini
every
India.
location.
It's basically a mini Punjab or something.
Many
like
Punjab. So even within my university, there are many Indians. I found these friends. But the point is, it's good to make friends from other countries. So it will diversify you. You learn about their culture. You celebrate everything. Because first time I came here, I celebrate Halloween, Christmas, and these things with my friends. It was a good experience. They came to Diwali. When I celebrate Diwali, they came to my house to celebrate with us. So it's like the cultural shock is, there is a cultural shock, but you have to recover from it. You have to make friends and you have to invite them. When you make friends, I think it's everything is about survival is in the university when you're alone. It's all about friendship, that the friends you make and how much, how good they are and how well they are supporting you.
Yeah, right, sir. Now I would hand over my mic to my fellow coordinators.
Good evening, sir.
Hey, good evening, Pug. Hey,
So,
Pug.
sir, I would like to ask you that you have been at administrative roles, being a part of GSA and VP of Finance at your university. So, would you like to share any insights related to administration from your journey?
So yes, the point is when I came in Canada, I only know how to study. To be honest, because as a student, like back home or everything, you only know what to study, how to study. Like other than that, when I realized I need to grow more on my rules. So as a part of my masters, at 2 years in my masters, what I used to do, I do volunteering work for many student unions. So I work with IEEE Carleton. There is a student chapter for IEEE in Carleton. So I used to work with, there are all undergrads. But the point is, I have no hesitation working with undergrad because I was the only graduate student with them. Because if you can learn from anyone, you should not be feeling ashamed about it. Either it's a younger than you or it's a senior from you. The point is, learning cannot be, you cannot feel ashamed about learning from anyone. If he has knowledge, you have to learn from it. And if you want it, you have to learn from it. So I joined all these student association for 2 years. I did volunteering work with like 4 or 5 student unions. The point is, then I realized is the problem with the problem with the international student I found is they have a problem, but they don't know how to come forward because they don't know whom to trust in this situation, like outside country, and like what to get the resources from, where to get those resources. So my first term in a GSA, I started to work as a VP academics, where I found that there are many academic issues because international students have different rules and regulations than a domestic student. Like completely in every university, when you go, there are 2 different international students and domestic, and the rules and is completely different for them. Academic rules also is completely different for them. So when I found there are many issues, and mostly I found that the core center for the issue for international student revolves around their financing situation, because sometimes they don't have money, they need to get grant, but there are so many grants available by the university or by the government in Canada, or like from even home country also, but they don't know how to apply, where to get those information. So once I finished my term as a VP academics, I switched to VP finance, and now currently I'm working on providing the list of all the scholarship that students can apply, what is the procedure that students can apply, how to get those scholarships. Like I'm currently doing these kind of sessions. Even the point is, we find that I think recently we are advocating with the other student unions for a long time. I think even before I came here, what the Carleton did, they put the every PhD student now after 1 year of my education. Now from this September, all the PhD international students are paying domestic student fees. So we advocate for those kind of issues, like so that the international students have the financing and they don't need to do part-time jobs, even though they don't have funding, because PhD and masters and like even the undergrad requires too much of studies, too much of patience, like too much of effort in doing this. And if they're doing part-time jobs, it takes some time of their studies. So they should be studying. So our whole idea is like, for the VP finance, the whole idea is provide them resources so they can focus less on their part-time jobs and funding, and they can more focus on their studies.
Yes, sir. So we think that there is a wider discussion about empowering people to be creative with technology. So where do you think that this is going to go, and what sort of your dreams are about that it could change our world?
So let me understand the question. So you're talking about the latest technology, right? If I'm not wrong, you're talking about latest technology people are going forward for, like machine learning, artificial intelligence, these things,
sir.
right? Okay. So
Yes,
when I was to be honest, I'm not a computer science student. I'm very afraid of machine learning and artificial AI. I'm really afraid of, because it requires high level. because I still prefer remaining on the driver's level, like C hardware, because of where I can play with real hardware and everything. But yes, everything is at this point I found that mostly designing and every algorithm, machine learning is machine learning and artificial intelligence. These are the basic things that going for each and every domain. I can't even say system, even education, but each and every domain, it goes from like learning of like even security, if not in my domains, from security, biometrics, even development of the how can I say, development in the product development and any system. People prefer anything that is smart, and smart things comes with and the point is that can learn itself from the different going all the time. So that's why the creative design, the point when it comes like these are the technology point, but the time when it comes to creative, in my opinion, the creative is not something you design new. Creative can also be means what's the things that already been designed, you can improve on that part. Either it's a performance or either it's a cost effective. I'm mostly goes with the cost effective thing, because the point is if you find a good product, the cost of that good product will be out of the reach of a common man. So when you design, when you think of the, when you can think of the products that can be provided to a common man with the less cost, so that they can afford it. So for me, affordability is the important part of the system. So that's why the point is, I go with the creativity part is you have to be creative. You have to be creative. You cannot go with the book, because whatever you read in, even the professor is not going to agree with me, but whatever you're going to read in the book, like as a bachelor's, I understand we do 48 to 50 courses in a whole of 4 year of span, 48 to 50 courses approximately. So, but the point is when you go into a domain, you're only using 6 or 8 of them, not more than that, 6 or 8 of them, not more than that, because that changes, because it defines your domain, which domain you want to go. So when you do that, the knowledge that you have on that domain particularly is very limited. So you have to learn more. You have to be creative. You have to be creative. So that's the point of it. Like creativity is important, but when the people say you have to design every time a new thing, or you have to define a new thing to be a creative, it doesn't mean you have to creative doesn't mean designing a new thing. It means you have to be, you can improve performance and other parameters of the things that you are working on.
That's true, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay.
Good evening, sir. I'm Gulene. So,
hey,
and sir, I'm interested in blockchain, and I know that blockchain uses cryptography and hashing. So, what are other fields that are using cryptography?
Okay, that's a good question, to be honest. So, cryptography is simply means like you're not sending anything, simple plain text message, because the point is when we say you're typing on a phone, we all use WhatsApp. If I'm not wrong, we all use WhatsApp. So whenever you type in a WhatsApp, you can see one thing: end-to-end encryption. There is sometime a message came, it's end-to-end encryption is there in a WhatsApp. There is there. So what that really means that whatever you are sending and whatever the other person is receiving, only those are the two people that can read whatever you're typing in a plain English text, and he can read it in plain English, like a verifiable text. That the exact term is verifiable text. But for the system, for the other people who sometimes hack your system phone, or sometimes in the channel that you are communicating over, if they hack it, they will not able, because for them it's a gibberish. They cannot go with it. They cannot understand it. I can say the simple example of let's ask you, how many of you use the password? We all use password, right? We all use password. Simple case, let's password. You know, you have many accounts. Did you use the same password for many accounts? That's a question. Like you use for many accounts, you use the same, repeat your password, right? And what your password will be? Your first alphabet will be capital, and your last last symbol will be some kind of a symbol from a keyboard, right? So mostly it goes this way. So that's a kind of thing. That's a predictability, because the point is when you put a password or anything, it's a simple, when you say you follow the guidelines that was written in a website or something, and you design that so that you can remember system. But the point is when you say you remember, if I save that thing in a plain text format, like a simple, like you say you're Gurleen, I type your name and like say a number like 2020, and that's your password. If you save it in a plain text, if I get into your computer and access your file, I can see directly your password. The point is that's why that's the system when the hashing or the cryptography came into picture, to protect your data. Because every time we use smart bit, all the data is in the cloud and everything. If you don't use these kind of cryptography and these encryption, decryption methods and everything, your data will be lost. And this point, money is not important as much as data is important for you. Because the point is data is the important critical factor at this. I found that because with the people design ransomware, like say, I found sometimes I was reading few articles last time. The ransomware is one of the bugs that we found, where people will encrypt your computer, your data, and will ask money to decrypt it. The point is that's a kind of a virus. That's one of the virus or worms you can say. But the point is that's why the cryptography and hashing goes everywhere. The point is I cannot find a simple field where you can work without crypto. Even the point is you want to say a secret to your friend or say something hi to your friend secretly. You go to her or go to him or her or him, and then go secretly say it to him, because you do not shout in the class like I like Saudi or anything. You want to ask him secretly and like believe in that part. So even in the from personal life, I would say day-to-day life to your whole system, like your computer or digital system, cryptography is everywhere.
Yes. And sir, one more question I wanted to ask. What developments in your horizon could affect the future opportunities that are to become?
So for me, I can talk about my domain. The point is, my domain is mostly security. So when I found about when I joined the IoT, like when I joined, I was trying to do the network security point of view, but for me, I found that security is the thing that was considered very little, and people are not paying attention to that part. Even the point is, I cannot blame the everyone, because the point is, as a student, when we learn about in academia, in everywhere, I found that when you do some projects or assignments, security was considered as a part of fourth year projects, like fourth year or fifth year. That's one of the course that was offered in fourth year. And the point is, you do many projects in the part of your third year. I can say first year not, because first year you take common courses, but in second year, third year, you develop many courses and design many projects. But if you think of it as a part of your academia and everything, it has to be there. But for me, the security, AI, all these programming development tools comes hand in hand. Like the point is, currently one of my friend, like one of my lab mate is working using a machine learning. He was developing a system called intrusion distraction system. Like if there is a bug or in a system, like antivirus kind of thing. So he was developing on that so that it can learn from the system if there is a new bug into the market, or there is a database available on the system on some few websites. So it gets the information from that database. It put reasons or the requirements for that bug. What are the different symbols that shows that bug? What are the different points that that bug is in your system, and designing a system for like protecting it. So he was working on. So I can say machine learning. I can say another thing is data mining. I found data mining, people say it can be only used by people who are in computer science, engineering, and these people. I found here like even from public policy design to animation, everyone uses data science. Even in the public sector, people are using data crunching. Like even in the sports, it was used for doing the analysis of the sports, like hockey. Currently, one of my professor is working on analyzing all the ice hockey. She works with the data. She's a good data mining professor. So she's working on analyzing the ice hockey statistics of all the players and everything, and so that they can design a strategy. So I can say machine learning, artificial intelligence, data mining, and how can I say security. These are the four things I found it's quite booming at this point, and even in the industry field also.
Thank you so much, sir.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Bhavika.
Sir, this is Bhavika from BBA branch. Sir, I want to know what is the most rewarding part of your VPF role during your term?
So most rewarding part is you get to meet new people, you get to network. The point is, I found that's the biggest point is when you are even within when you are there in your when in India or outside, you need to meet more and more people, because when you're then limited to your to the university or your branch, you don't have that much exposure. You need to know the real world. So the point is, as a part of VPF, so it's not related to my studies at all, but the point is, most rewarding part is I am able to help students, because as in 2 years of masters, I know what the international student goes through, what are the different problems they are facing and everything. So as a part of PhD, I joined as a GSA to help those if I am able to help it sometimes, because the point is, as a normal student, when you ask administration is gonna listen to your mail, but it's not gonna answer you until unless you are in a proper authority to do that. So as a part of my job as a VPF or in a part of the GSA, we have a responsibility to advocate for the students. So at this point, I can say we never in the good terms with the university. University always hate us as a part of the job, not as academia, because we always always goes against them to support the students and everything. But yeah, the two things that most is networking with many people outside your domain, like not from the academia, because the point is you never know when you get help, you need help from someone, or you need help from someone outside your domain, or they need help from you. So it's a kind of a networking and learning and supporting student. Those are the two rewarding points from me as a part of the GSA or as a part of VP Finance.
Sir, thank you. Sir, one more question. What is cryptography in practical terms?
So as well, I was telling, so recently I was working in IoT. So recently when I was, before I started in 2017, there's an attack, I can say in practical terms, you save your password on your system, right? That's what I was telling you about. You all use IoT, like IoT devices, smartwatches, smart bulbs, you all have that. You know, there's a default password its system comes with. Sometimes, but the point is I found many people don't change that default password, not even. So in 2016, the default password was most of the, when they do the kind of survey, the default password of the systems was Justin Bieber. In 2017, the default password was just password. People are just typing password. And that's as a password. People do most, even the point is few companies do that. When you set them, like even in my company, like I was in one of the, like in Ericsson, when you say you forget your password, you ask them to reset, they're going to send you a default password. That was password. And the point is in last year, the password, when the survey happened, in most of the IoT devices, you know, everyone, there is a, in each house, there are 4 to 5 IoT devices from your mobile phone to everything. The default password was blank. No one company wants to put a password. So the cryptography in real terms is protecting your data, because when you don't protect yourself, someone need to, so that's the responsibility of the company. You cannot blame end user, because I can say we are students, we understand because we are studying many things, but in many countries, even in India also, there are many people that are not tech savvy. They don't know, they got the product. For them, if the product is working, they don't care about how the product is working, what the security, they don't care about it. But they take their selfies, they put their photos in it, and people do their thing. Sometimes there's a, I think everyone knows about it. You take a photo, it directly upload it to your cloud or directly upload it to your Facebooks. The point is, if you don't protect this kind of data, if you don't protect these things, anyone can end up. And the bigger problem, I can say, you all have a bank account. I think you all have a bank account. There is a system called recovery of password, security questions. You put your personal information as a security question, like who's your friend, who's your best friend, where do you live, what's your first school. All this information is available on the social media that you use. Everything is available. I know sometimes I become like a confusing, because the point is I look everything as a suspicious point of view. But the point is, when I studied in the last year, that Facebook lost millions of I think millions of people's data. So when I realized because of the password recovery of a method, these things, the system has to protect it. The only thing that was good, even these big companies keep in their end, keep their data, keep all this data as an encrypted format. Even though they collected the data, it's quite hard for them to decrypt it, because it requires a huge number of resources. But that's the point. So security and the cryptography is that I was telling earlier, it's in everywhere, in every part of your life. So that's the point, like you have to secure your data anything possible, anyhow possible.
Okay, thank you, sir. So just last question. Some devices are not online all the time or appear to be in low power mode when they are online. So how do they stay safe?
So, okay, let me put it this way. I was telling Alok sir in the start kind of thing, like my study works on the low-end IoT devices. So low-end IoT devices are the devices you put in the system, like they say smart light bulb, you put it outside on a street and you forget about it. So when you talk about these devices, the companies, you can say there are thousands of companies in the market developing IoT devices. But the point is, lifespan of IoT devices is 5 to 10 years, but lifetime of the company goes bankrupt in 1 or 2 years. Now these devices are in the market with no security protection, nothing like no one can protect them, anything. So the point is, my master's thesis was designed on this part, like how I can protect them as a part of using a third party, because sometimes you use third party services, right? We use third party libraries. So these services, I designed the system for that, so that third party can provide the software. Even say a product company do not want to provide security, they want to just sell the product. So they can prepare with that, they can make a collaboration with the third party and they take the responsibility. And even third party don't need to do anything about it. They can collect the software from the open source developers, because you all know GitHub as the open source repository and everything. People develop many things, contribute on many open source software. So they can collect them from them. They can test it at their end. Their responsibility will be to test at their end and then deploy it. The problem with the low-end IoT devices is that, like, you cannot use high-end security protocols on that top kind of thing. I'm no idea. The point is there are two levels of protocol that mostly is there's high end that requires too much kind of like battery power and everything, and there's low end. So you need to find a trade-off. Sometimes you have to put your device to sleep. If it's not working, put it to sleep. If it's working, use it interrupt mode to get it awake and then use it. So there, when you design a system for low-end devices like these kind of things, people use these techniques to conserve the energy, to protect them, so that it can be viable for a long time. But mostly still the question remains, there need to be a company or third-party companies, third-party resources that can provide security for these products.
Okay, thank you so much, sir.
Okay.
Good evening, sir.
Hey, good evening. Good evening, Ravina.
Question is, during all your studies or learning aids, anything that can help or inspire us you want to share?
So I can say one thing. The point is, study. You all know you have to study. That's the one part. That's the one part you don't need to. Anyone don't need to tell you. Like you all know that part because parents telling you, professors telling you need to study. For me, I can tell one thing: studying is not the only thing. You have to do co-curricular records. There are other things you need to improve in your other factors of, like, because the point is, I found in my book is the one part of your life. Book knowledge is the one part of your life. But the point is, when you see a project or anything, you see a book, you learn about something at a course or anything. Start developing a project using that something. Like say you're using digital signal processing or something. Start developing a small project. Even just mimic any project that available on internet. You will learn by mimicking those projects also. Learn from every source available. The point is, and the other thing is, when you go for an interview, I found it. When I was in college. I think the JB Sharma sir was the head of Department of Electronics. I don't think he was here. I don't think he was in BIT with BIT anymore. But the point is, we started a robotics club. My senior started a robotics club. I joined it next year. I took the lead on it. So the best part is teaching the students and everything. So that was my part of co-curricular record. Like I did the robotics club. I teach the first year, second year students about basic C programming. We prepare them like with my friends. Like I was in third year with the second year. We prepare them for the different technical tech fest that happens in IITs. Like Malvi Institute of Technology, NIT, MNIT, and like LMNIT. These institutes, like other institutes, we prepare them for the different robotics competition. And when I did my job interview, I think the guy never asked me about my studies and anything. He just saw my thing. Okay, I'm graduated from bachelor's and thing. He mostly asked my project that I did in robotics. So that's the part of the thing you need to develop. That point is sometimes way back here, I found that rule goes same way in here in also company. Even though I'm not going for a job, I did job interviews to keep my skills. I keep me updated according to the industries and everything. Like the point is part-time, like other than academic projects, the studies, you have to do some projects or co-curricular activity. If you're good in volunteering or anything, do volunteering work, design any fest, like anything, join any group or something. I have no idea, but I still say that I think I think most of you are in electronics or computer science. Start IEEE club. If you have it, that's good. If you don't have it, IEEE is one of the good club. There I learned about many things, to be honest. Professionally, we do many kind of job fair. We organize job fair for students. So these are the part of the things that you do other than studies. I know it's too much. It requires time and commitment also. But the point is, you all are engineers, or like you are all bachelor student. You know how to juggle things, so you can do it. So just do it. Just the point is, co-curricular records are also as important, like doing side project, as important as your studies to build your whole profile.
Okay. So my last question is that, so how could one transition from a field that he or she has majored into a new field?
So I can take my example. The point is, I was an electronics engineer. I ended up in IT sector. Yes. The point is, when I was telling in the start, the point is, when I went into the industry, like I only know basic C programming, like theoretical concepts of everything, but I never did programming that, because you learn as an electronics engineer, you learn MATLAB, Verilog, and basic C till file open and file close kind of thing. You don't learn that much depth of level, like networking and everything, and networking about everything. The point is, when I get the training, I learned about many things. The point is, it's about dedication. If you want to learn, if you want to change that domain, and you will love that domain. At this point, there are so many online resources available. There are online resources, do online courses. If you have to do it, do online courses, take 2 or 3 courses. Build projects, like take the online course. That's what I'm saying. Mimic the project you saw online. Let's say a chat server. There are so many chat servers available online, and you want to go from electronics to development in this IT sector. So the point is, you learn from there, you just mimic those things. But when you're mimicking anything, try to understand why this line was used. What this is, the point is, you understand. The point is, when you do that, and it's learning, and the point is from online resources, everything, it's easy to transition. The only thing is, sometimes the companies have a by default guideline. We can only hire computer science students. Doesn't matter. Just find a company for the start that accepts for what you've done so far. Because after you work in one company, no one is going to look into your bachelor's and everything. Then they're going to look into your experience. So once you have that first phase covered, like find a job that accepts you, and there's no company, anything like a startup or anything. It's everything that you want to learn. Just and the point is, I say I'm still learning from online, because I can say I only know C and C++ as a language. Even though I'm doing computer science, I'm supposed to know many languages. I know the concepts, but I only know C and C++ throughout. But the point is, I'm still taking online courses of web development, Java, and not Java. I have no idea why, but the point is, I'm not comfortable with Java, but I learn JavaScript, web development, HTML, CSS. I do those kind of things, but I do this with the online courses, because the point is, self-learning is the important part of the life.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Hello, sir.
Hello, Pramit.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay. So actually, I'm passing graduate from 2017 BIT Mishra Jaipur campus, and after that, I completed my MTech from BIT Mishra main campus 2019, and now I'm a PhD scholar in IIT IS in Dhanbad.
Okay.
So, sir, my project topic is actually the electric vehicle charging system using IoT. So, I already completed my first year only in PhD. That time, I already completed my coursework only. So, because this is like a fully hardware project. So what part of the IoT, that part of the IoT, how can I manage? So because I already.
So Pramit, I can say, yes. So Pramit, I can say one thing. Like when you say it's completely hardware, sometimes when you talk about electric charging, like I think you're talking about the electric vehicle charging. If please correct me if I'm.
Yes, sir. Electric vehicle charging. Electric vehicle charging.
Okay. So when I say, so it's not completely, you cannot say when you work in a hardware, when you work with the hardware, there's a certain level of things that you can do with the hardware, because hardware is not as much flexible when you say, because when you want to do something about a hardware, like say increase the timing or like increase the performance and reduce the timing, within that time you want to the vehicle to be charged and everything. So there is certain level of hardware that you can do, because hardware is a kind of a static entity. But the point is, when you go about programming and these things, you can improve a lot on those kind of things. Suppose, because at the end of the day, you will be using some programming tools to work on it. Either it might be a Verilog, VSDL, or it might be a C, or like some kind of machine learning system, so that you can understand that requirement of your electric vehicle and design the system based on it. So when you work on those things, improve on the performance part of that device, look into the different alternatives. I can say for you one thing, the point is, sometimes people, I was looking into one of my supervisor currently told me that one thing, like you don't need to worry about the new things. Sometimes the answer lies in the old books, like the previously, because I was working in operating system. My operating system was in the market from 1960s. So when I was looking into the Android system, and the problem faced was what a problem faced by the Android. So these problems are also faced by the real operating system like Windows, Macintosh, and these kind of operating system that was when it was designed in 1970s, when they are designing these systems. So whenever you read those kind of old, sometimes it's not about reading the new things and keeping you updated. Try to read the old papers also. Like even for you, if you're working in hardware, read old papers about batteries and everything. You will find sometimes the solution you might looking for, you can find in those old papers, and one of the good authors that do not get that much that paper do not get that much recognition, but you think it might work out for you. So yeah, keeping yourself updated with the new papers is a good thing. Modifying is a good thing, but always look into the past also, because sometimes past contains the solution of your new problem.
So actually, I already developed the battery management system, but how can I take the data to the cloud, IoT cloud? That is the main problem for me. Actually, sir, I'm not for the computer background. I'm not good in programming. So this is my main problem in IoT, sir. Because nowadays I study about the Raspberry Pi for the IoT.
So, okay. Yes. So you you did your bachelor's in electronics, right? If I'm not wrong.
No, electrical, purely electrical and electrical.
Yeah, okay. So did you know any language, programming language, C or basic, any language? For me, I can say even if you know C. Yes,
I know about
sorry,
the
Prince.
C and C++.
Yes.
I know about the
So
C and
if
C++.
you know C, you can develop that process system. Collecting a data from cloud is the easiest project. And the point is you can find the sample codes on the cloud, on the Google, and just you need to type it. The best part is they are developed in C also, so you can understand it. When you say you're working in IoT, it doesn't mean you have to work the high level, like different complex languages like C hash or Ruby or different level of like Raspberry Pi. I work in all the languages, but you can also work in C language. So to be honest, I work in Raspberry Pi and I only prefer using C, because the point is, even though it will be a long code, like it, rather than if that things that you can develop with the different languages in 6 to 7 lines, for C it will be like 15 or 20 or 30 lines, but you can do it in C also. So I think that it can be done. And to like if you really want to do that, and if I can any help, you know my, I think that you can know my, you know my LinkedIn, and just send me a message on LinkedIn and I'll help you out with that thing. No, it's not a problem to help you out.
Okay, thank you, sir.
No worries.
Hello, sir. Good evening. Ashutosh Shohra this side.
Hey, Astosh.
Sir, so my question to you is, like if we are considering a pure electronics side, like you are doing IoT and security things, so that's we consider it as a CS side. So, what are your thoughts about pure electronics division side, like circuit designing and PCB designing and that sort of thing? That includes pure electronics, like theory as well as the practical thing.
So I can say with the pure electronics, I did my training in VSDL and Verilog. The point is Xilinx, like Xilinx circuit designing and everything, at the end of the day comes up little bit, part of it contains. When you go to the fourth year of your electronics, you end up learning mostly part as a part of your electronic system. As a part of your programming design kind of thing, because the point is MATLAB, you have to design the MATLAB for we use for digital signal processing, use MATLAB for different designing a circuit, like as you're saying, circuit designing. That can be used on software and that can be used on VSDL, because the point is sometimes you don't know, you know the logic of the system, that what you want to design, but you don't know how it's going to turn out. So you use VSDL or Verilog to design the system. The point is, I found it a little bit hard way back there. Like in my time, the point is like in 2012, because I was an average student, I can honestly tell you, I was not. I tried for government job, but I tried it, but I'm not that successful. I was not successful in it. The point is, I found, and the point is, mostly these PCB and circuit designing jobs lies within government domain, like BHEL and those domain. So I can say only out of like as many electronics engineer design, they only 5% or 10% of them. But the point is, it doesn't mean you're you're not an electronics engineer. You will learn networking, you learn embedded systems, you learn as a part of VSDL or like Verilog. These are also part of your electronic system. So you can also get your jobs and everything. You can use those systems to design anything. And the point is, at the end of the day, whatever the electronic circuit designing people are doing, they end up using your tools, because the point is, everything is on software at this point. People prefer using a software, because the point is, manufacturing is a completely different system. You just send them a how can I say, blueprint of any circuit, and they design it for you. But that blueprint, you have to design it using a software or the programming tools or something like that. So I can say electronics has never been short on anything. Electronics is like, point is how you want to view it and which domain you want to go. If you want to go in circuit designing, there are many companies do it, but the point is, it's a kind of a ratio is quite, they hire very less people, or they hire the people, they hire very less people, or they hire the experienced people. So it will be it will be a competition, and you have to go prepare hard. You have to prepare mentally, because the competition will be tough for you. But the point is, the competition is tough everywhere, but the point is, yeah, programming domain, there are good many opportunities. That's why there is a people goes mostly side of IT sector.
So, sir, is it like if I am applying to a company, like if we consider Intel or Qualcomm or that thing, so they would prefer someone from an MTech side, or they would prefer someone who has developed, who has done more projects, or who has done MTech degree? Like
So
in my case, I'm an below average student, but I have done many projects in pure electronics, embedded systems, and circuit designing, that sort of thing. So I'm totally into electronics side, not in the coding side. So is there a chance for me to get an exposure in those companies, like dream companies?
So there's always a chance. Let me put it this way, Ashutosh. The people, there's something I can say taboo, or I can say there's a few guidelines. I think I have no idea, but I found it when I was applying for that. There's a first tier college, the second tier college, and third tier college. Your GPA has to be there. Your CGPA has to be that much to apply in these companies and something like that. The point is, this is kind of first phase of your first chapter, that when you leave the college and you get your first job. It might be possible within your first try, you have to, the Qualcomm and these companies, to be honest, I'm going to give you an honest answer, because you can get it, but the point is, with the first try, when the companies have these kind of guidelines, it's a little bit hard. But when you go into a company in a job and you just did 1 year of experience, then those projects, with that experience, you can apply in any company, any dream company. Because when you graduate from a college, there are so many graduates from the college. Companies put the guidelines like you have to be a computer science engineer, you have to be a 8 point above CGPA student, you have to taken these courses, and you have to did these kind of things. So these kind of things only matter when you just graduate from college and go into those jobs and go apply for these companies. After that, when you did 1 year of your practical job or anything in any company, then it doesn't matter. Then you can go with, many of my friends are, I can say, average student, they are working with good companies, like best companies in Bangalore. Like one of my friends working with Qualcomm, Oracle, and everything. These companies are working, the students are working with these companies. But the point is, that's not their first choice. They learn some experience in another company, and they jump to that company. Because once you have the experience, your academics, then your projects matters, and your experience matter. Your academic skills and your CGPA, they're not going to look into your CGPA, how good are you in college, because because they know if you did the project and some companies hire you, you have the skills, and that skills that matters.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, sir. Sir,
Yeah.
my name is yes, sir. Sir, my question was how about the improvisation is better than innovation in this field?
So improvisation is better than innovation. So at this, in any you're asking about any field, right? If I'm not wrong.
What, sir?
Can you repeat your question, please? Sorry.
Sir, as this field is about IoT and cyber security.
Yeah.
So I was asking about the question like improvisation is better than innovation in this field.
Okay. Aman. So improvisation and how can I say, innovation, both goes hand in hand, and both are new things. You get marks for both things. Let me put it this way: when you apply or you publish anything, or like you do a project, you get marks for both things, innovation and improvisation, because those both things requires a skill. Both requires creativity, as I was telling it earlier, that it both requires creativity. You cannot improve anything on just one night. For improving anything, you require a lot of studies, lot of things. You require a hard work to improve anything. Let's say you want to improve a simple, say, a battery life you use in a product. The point is, you need to study the product completely, where it was using, how much battery it was using for each operations and everything. Even for your phone also, you use phone, and sometimes the app, your mobile phone says this app is using too much using too much battery, so you shut it off. The point is, this is kind of a simple thing, but the point is, in the systems also, like one of my friends, I can say, I was currently working on a system where there's this there's a usability study we recently did. When the people say you give them a guideline, they will never follow. But whenever they're doing wrong, if you pop up a message for them, they respond to that quickly. So that's something, that's not new thing. That's an improve something, that you put an extra security point in that system. So that's a new thing, and it got published, and everything is good. Everything is good. People love about it. The point is, both are equivalent, and you can get marks for both of them. It depends what you want to prefer. People prefer for improvise. Some people prefer for developing new things, and some people prefer for improve the old thing. In IoT, improvement is easy because there are so many products in market, and the people left so many bugs in those products. So you can open, and if you read about papers, you can find daily there are 5 or 6 papers published on IoT regarding these bugs and like these vulnerabilities present in IoT. So people goes for improvement in IoT because there are so many companies that are developing an improvement, but they're not checking about the bugs they are leaving in the system. So that's why they go for improvement. But
Yes,
for
sir.
me, IoT and new thing, both innovation and improvement, both are the same thing.
Yeah, sir. And how about the self-driving cars are evolving and developing in the world? So, as just someone asked that the passwords are not secured right now in the world. So, what do you think about the self-driving cars, that they are only the data on the cloud of the self-driving cars? So, basically, every step is followed by the hacker, which are hacking the self-driving cars. As a
Okay,
movie also
so
I saw,
yes.
in that
So
also
let me
the
ask you one
self-driving.
simple thing. So the point is, when you live in a house or you live in a hostel somewhere. So did you go out and you lock your room, or did you go when you go out you lock your room? Correct.
Yes, sir.
So are you afraid that so if someone gonna break into your house, so that's a kind of afraid you everything have in mind. Someone might steal something. So with that fear in your mind, so are you gonna stick into your room for a whole your life?
No, sir.
So that's the simple case. So hacker will always be there. The point is bad people will always be there. The point is that doesn't mean that you stop working on the security part of your security part. You don't stop working your stop working. It means you have to be a little bit smarter than that. The thing about self-driving car is it's a good project. Many companies are doing it. Even in I think my university is also as a funding, like it was got funded for the self-driving car. It's like it's a big risk. The point is it's a big risk. The point is companies are also taking into consideration, because the point is at this point it's a huge data on the cloud. They have to protect it and they're working on it. I can understand is the one of the things that my supervisor used to say, as my security supervisor used to say, as a developers, you need to close each and every gate. Suppose you have 100 gates, you have to make sure those 100 gates are properly secure. For an attacker, they only need one gate to be open and they enter in your system. So for the developer, as a developer, you don't stop working. You have to outsmart them. You have to do your best to them. And sometimes the developers do other things also. Like a few of my like in security, you don't get credit for developing security things. You get credit for also hacking into things and proving them that system is not working. Recently Apple has Apple and many companies do their hackathon kind of thing. If you can prove them their system is hackable, they give you money for that thing.
Yes, sir.
So, but the point is, these are the things they do security checks and these kind of things. But yeah, never been bad people will always be there. It doesn't mean you stop working. You have to go with it. You have to design your system to be more secure as possible.
So, what if the technology remain constant of cyber securities and the self-driving cars are developed? Then what would be the next step for the security guys?
For the security, the point is security is never be a constant. Like there are different parts of security. One is the cryptographic, one is the security. So cryptography is developing algorithms and some security algorithms, and the security is the part of using those algorithms, design the whole system for it. So the system goes with the people we use those, both of them goes hand in hand. So people, the people are currently saying the quantum computing is coming. The quantum computing is used. People can say it can be used for hacking also, and we can say it can be used for both. Like it's the same way as the atom bomb. The atom bomb was designed for developing the energy, but it can be used for devastation also. So it's a kind of a trade-off. The point is, I can say technology is never going to be a constant part. Technology is always evolving. I can say that it's never going to be a constant. Don't worry about it. You always have something to learn about new things.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Hi, sir.
Hey,
I'm Neha, and I have a question. Like nowadays, we are having a lot of things, like anything we can imagine in around. If we have a network element or a server or anything, everything is being virtualized, right? So a lot of spike is around virtualization. So I would like to know about how we are thinking about security also in virtualization.
So security in virtualization mostly goes, like I say, virtualization comes out different, like cloud computing and everything. So data security works in like it has 4 or 5 different principles, I can say. Another first principle is confidentiality. You have to make sure your data is secure. You cannot change. Your data is secure from end-to-end encryption. So the current topic I can say about security is email. So suppose you were emailing from Gmail to a Hotmail or like Yahoo Mail or something. I have no idea Yahoo exists or not, but yeah, Yahoo Mail or something. The point is it's not end-to-end encrypted. Companies providing the encryption within their own domain. So that's one of the things that's a bigger problem. The point is virtualization goes around these kind of like 4 principles: confidentiality, integrity, Availability. Integrity means you cannot change your data. No one can hack and change your data. Suppose your bank transferring of 1,000 rupees and someone change it to 5,000. Just only change one or just add an extra zero on top of it. From 1,000 it became 10,000. So these are the things that people are currently working on, putting more cryptographic things. So recently mostly the open source team moved from TLS 1.2 to TLS 1.3. They provide more. It's like they enhance the performance, they reduce the they introduce new cryptographic algorithms and new cryptographic algorithms to protect the data and on the cloud or like the channels, communication channels. So companies are working on it, but the point is, as an end user, it's our responsibility also to do not use the password as our first name, like no, as our second name. It's the end user responsibility also, because the point is for us, the password, when you buy a product or you install an app, I'm pretty much sure, even I started doing it recently, but when you install an app in your Android, you never read the privacy policy. We never read it. We just say next and we install it. So the point is, when you did that, you don't know if the company you are using the app from are collecting your data or using it for some different purposes or not. So we have to be a little bit aware about what we are doing, but it's mostly goes with the manufacturer. They have to design the system, because we cannot put anything on the end user. Like as a student, you know what you have to do to protect. But if you say about the grandparent of like my grandparents, they don't even know. They know how to use the thing, but they don't care about how to protect it. They don't give it them. For them, if it's working, don't touch it. Don't even think about securing it. If it's working, that's good. But the point is, companies working, but for our responsibility is to use basic tools to protect ourselves, because the point, it goes both. And the point I was telling, if you cannot be secure about you use your first name as a password and your date of year, birth of year as a password, it's not a good security to use.
Also, sir, I have been reading a lot about IoT standards, and there have been a lot of spike about IoT security also. Like some of the standards have been putting around that IoT devices should be more restrictive rather than permissive in allowing for data communication, and they have been talking about more inbound and outbound connections, like how they should allow. So the main challenge that I found while reading these standards are there are so many standard developing organizations and a lot of information is there. So is there any strategy like that that we can make to read these standards, because you have been into this domain? So I think it is a perfect question that I can ask you.
So, okay, first thing, IoT follow few standards, but IoT itself don't have a standard. To be honest, IoT don't have it. They have RFCs, they have something. Yeah. They're still working on the draft for the standard. They haven't. So recently, I can say the California published a law in 2018, if I'm not wrong, to make the default unique password for each and every device. That's a law. And that's why after that point, they realized that they need to work on the draft of like these kind of like, they have to give some guidelines for the manufacturers, because the point is manufacturers avoiding these kind of things because it will increase the cost of the product. So that's the point. Regarding the reading part, I can see in which domain IoT has all the section. IoT has networking, IoT has hardware, IoT has communication. So because the point is IoT combined with data mining too. So when you talk about IoT, IoT is everything. When you know about your domain, like you want to work in hardware part or networking protocol part, or like which part you want to work on, first you need to define security. That your domain. Security?
Yeah, IoT security.
So even IoT, let's put it IoT security. IoT security can protect, you can protect the networking protocols also, and the hardware communication, data communication also. So when you talk about this thing, you need to first, it's going to take a lot of time, to be honest. First, you need to find a problem statement. When you read those papers, so when I read the paper, to be honest, when I read so many papers, standards, I read the abstract part, introduction, and the conclusion. These are the three things I read first. And with that, I got the idea, this paper is in my area or not my domain. If it's in my area, then I look into the related work that paper is looking like assigning referencing. Best part is if you find a good paper, it was referencing some good papers also. So goes into that reference or bibliography of that particular paper and find that those papers. So it's a chain reaction. You find a good paper, you go into that bibliography and read those papers or like look into those papers. So it's a kind of chain reaction. I currently use this kind of method so to find the good papers about particularly in my domain. And for the standards, I think there are not that many standards, but yeah, there are so many drafts. Everyone is publishing their own draft. Then go with the author name. You have to find good authors with it. So I think if you really want to know, just let me say, okay, I can again say, send me a message on anything. If you have any doubt about IoT, just send me a message on LinkedIn. If about any paper, and I can find you, I can let you know about good authors that publish good papers or good standards about those things. And then you can look into Google Scholar about those authors and you can find the papers published by them.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
A very good evening to everyone. I would, on the behalf of SARC and the whole community, extend my most sincere thanks to Mr. Hemant sir for gracing this platform. I would also like to thank my fellow coordinators and teachers, without whose guidance this extent would not have been successful. We really got many useful insights, and which would help us in our future. Your thoughts has enlightened us our minds. We would like to thank our SARC head coordinators, that are Ashutosh Rohila and Harshita Chaudhary, and other coordinators Agrima, Harshita, Riya, Garvit, Taranjeet, Bhavika, Gurleen, Palak, Amrisha, Ravina, Myra, and I would also like to thank all the faculty members and all the participants who have supported this webinar to be successful. Thank you.
So, thank you everyone. To be honest, it's a good time to connect to the university back again after 9 years. It's so fun to be here.
Hello. This
Hello.
side,
Hi.
Ankur. Special thanks to Alok sir and Aparajita ma'am. Special thanks to Alok sir and Aparajita ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We are here for your contributions. Thank you very much, sir. I would like to thank the entire faculty members who are currently on this show with us. Thank you for your presence and your support for the event.
And thank you, Aparajita ma'am, for contacting me. I'm really happy to do it.